Okay, so I think we've got that figured out. Um, my introduction was stopped short, but in conclusion, I'm Anjali Aggarwal and I will be guiding this course for all of its sessions. So again, we are going to talk about the anatomy and basics of the body. And this is the first session. So we are going to have 8 topics today: the organizational structure of the body, intro to body systems, vital organs, body cavities, body regions, and quadrants, directional terms, anatomical positions, and medical terms. So we are first going to go over the organizational structure of the body. So when we talk about the structure of the body, we definitely will always start from the smallest to the biggest, and the atom is considered the smallest structure in the body. And how this is organized is that everything that comes after is basically the everything that comes before it is grouped together to make up the next thing. For example, a group of atoms make up molecules. A group of molecules make up cells. A group of tissues makes up an organ. A group of organ makes up an organ system, and a group of organ systems makes up our body. So let's talk about the atom first. The atom is the smallest part of the human body. It cannot be broken up. So therefore, we cannot ever have a smaller part. So for example, we can't have just one proton or one neutron. The function of an atom is the result of a certain structure of an atom determines its function and makes up the function of whatever molecule it makes up. So if it is a certain type of atom, it will make up a certain type of molecule. The structure of an atom consists of 3 basic particles: protons, which are positive, electrons, which are negative, and neutrons, which do not have any charge. The center is made up of the nucleus, and inside the nucleus is the proton and the neutron. In the shells, basically the oval structures that you see, contain the electrons, and they are negative. There are almost 99% of the human body is made up of the 6 main elements: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. About 1% is composed of another 5 elements: potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. The next structure we have is the molecule, the smallest particle of a substance that retains all the properties of the substance and is composed of 1 or more atoms. The function of a molecule is that it has an essential role in catabolic and anabolic pathways. It's used in many reactions, but the most critical is cellular respiration. The structure of a molecule is made up of atoms that are held together by chemical bonds. These bonds form as a result of the sharing or exchange of electrons among the atoms. The atoms of certain elements readily bond with other atoms to form molecules. For example, the most commonly found molecule that we have is oxygen and hydrogen, which makes up water. Water is the most common molecule after oxygen in the body, and it is composed of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to an oxygen atom. There are 4 main types of organic molecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. The next structure we have are cells. Cells are the basic building blocks of all living things. Some of these parts, called organelles, are specialized structures that perform certain tasks within the cell. The function of a cell is to provide structure for the body, take in and convert nutrients from food, and carry out specialized functions. Cells also contain our DNA, which can make copies of itself. The structure of a cell consists of 3 parts: the cell membrane, the nucleus, and between the two, the cytoplasm. Within the cytoplasm lies fibers and the organelles we talked about before. There are over 200 kinds of cells in the human body, but somatic and gamete cells are the main types that we talk about. The cell we have here is a red blood cell. Red blood cells are not, in simpler words, alive. They do not contain any organelles in them. They are simply there to take oxygen to places our body needs it. Did you know that the cells in your heart replicate every 30 seconds? Tissues. Tissues are groups of cells that have a similar structure and act together to perform a specific function. The function of a tissue is that groups of tissues make up organs in the body, such as the brain and the heart. The structure of a tissue is comprised of a group of cells that have similar structure and that function together as a unit. The four main types of tissues in the body are epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. So something that you guys might not know is that bones are actually tissues. Next, we have organs. Organs are basically different types of tissues that work together to carry out a particular function. The structure of an organ is an anatomically distinct structure of the body composed of two or more tissue types. So there are many types of organs in the body, but we have 5 vital organs that we're going to talk about later. These are essential for survival. These are the brain, heart, kidneys, liver, and lungs. Organ systems. Organ systems are a group of organs that work together to perform major functions or meet physiological needs of the body. The function of an organ system is that they basically group different organs together to carry out a specific need for the body. For example, we have the brain and the spinal cord, which works together to basically, when you want to do a specific action, like if I'm picking up a cup, the brain tells the spinal cord through electricity, which pass through nerves, to pick up. It tells your hand to pick up the cup. So the human body consists of 11 organ systems, each of which contains several specific organs. We're going to talk about each of the 11 organ systems in the rest of the courses, but today we're just going to summarize them. And of course, everyone knows what the body is. The human body is the physical substance of the human organism, composed of living cells and extracellular materials, and are organized into tissues, organs, and systems. So the second topic that we have today is the intro to body systems. So basically, the 11 organ systems that we talked about before, we're going to summarize them now. So the only organ system that has 2 main parts is the reproductive system. It has the male and the female parts. So the first organ system that everyone usually learns is the integumentary system. We also have the skeletal system, the muscular system, nervous system, endocrine system, respiratory system, cardiovascular system, lymphatic system, digestive system, urinary system, and of course, the reproductive system. So before we start, I want each of you to, if you want to, go in the chat and tell everyone, what do you think each system is about? And give a brief description of one of the body systems, like whatever you think. So I'll give you guys a second to do that. Okay, so everyone's answers seem absolutely correct, and now we're going to go over each of the systems. So first we have the integumentary system. The organs of the integumentary system include the skin, hair, and nails. The skin is the largest organ in the body. It encloses and protects the body and is the site of many sensory receptors. The skin is the body's first defense against pathogens, and it also helps regulate body temperature and eliminate waste through sweat. Does anyone have any questions about the integumentary system before we move on? No. Okay. Next, we have the skeletal system. The skeletal system consists of bones, joints, and teeth. The bones of the skeletal system are connected by tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. Functions of the skeletal system include supporting the body and giving it shape. Along with the muscular system, the skeletal system enables the body to move. The bones of the skeletal system also protect internal organs, store calcium, and produce red and white blood cells. Something I found interesting about bones that I didn't even know like it was possible for that to happen. Our bones actually create cells, the same cells that fight infections in our body, and red blood cells, which carry oxygen through our body. So I think that's so interesting because I never thought bones could do that. I just thought they were dense things that just hold our body up. So next we have the muscular system. And before we start, I want to say that the muscular system and the skeletal system work hand in hand to support the body and give it the shape that everyone has. The muscular system consists of 3 different types of muscles, including skeletal muscle, which is basically attached to bones by tendons and allows for voluntary movement of the body. Smooth muscles are the second type of muscles. And they control the involuntary movements of internal organs, such as the organs of the digestive system, allowing food to move through the system. For example, the intestines. Smooth muscles in blood vessels can constrict and stretch, controlling body temperature. When we feel cold, the blood vessels constrict, and when we feel hot, they stretch. The third type of muscular tissue is cardiac muscle tissue, which controls the involuntary beating of the heart. So it's important to remember that skeletal muscles are voluntary, smooth muscles are involuntary, and cardiac muscles are involuntary, because if we could control the muscles in our heart, it probably wouldn't be beating all the time. Okay. The nervous system is next, and it contains the brain and the spinal cord, which makes up the central nervous system. And the nerves that run throughout the rest of our body, in our arms, our legs, our faces, those make up the peripheral nervous system. And the nervous system controls both voluntary and involuntary responses of the human organism, and also detects and processes sensory information. So when we feel, for example, if you pinch your skin, in your skin you have sensory receptors, a lot of them. They're everywhere, and there are a lot of them. So, and they're different types. Like some feel soft pressures, some feel intense pressures. So they all make up our nervous system. And another thing about nervous systems is that they have a whole different type of cell. And they're interesting because these cells have a different shape from the rest of the cells in our body. So the endocrine system is made up of glands that secrete hormones into the blood, and the blood carries the hormones throughout the body. The endocrine hormones are chemical messengers that control many body functions, including metabolism, growth, and sexual development. The pituitary gland, or the master gland, produces hormones that control other endocrine glands, including the pancreas, thyroid, and adrenal glands. So, endocrine system, hormones. Hormones are important for everything. I don't know if you guys have heard about like fight or flight hormones. There's a lot of type of hormones, and they are so important to our body. They control everything. And the pituitary gland is in our brain. Now next we have the respiratory system. Organs and other structures of the respiratory system include the nasal passages, lungs, and the trachea, which carries air between the nasal passages and the lungs. The main function of the respiratory system is to deliver oxygen to the blood and remove carbon dioxide from the body. Gases are exchanged between the lungs and blood across the walls of capillaries, which are basically tiny air sacs that are in our lungs. So that's where gases are exchanged, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Next, we have the cardiovascular system. It's also called the circulatory system because, again, blood is what basically moves everything throughout our body. If our cells need nutrients, if they need oxygen, the blood is there to give the cells whatever they need. And this system includes the heart, blood, and 3 types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. The heart pumps blood, which travels throughout the body. The main function of the system is the transport of oxygen, nutrients, and hormones. CO2 and other waste materials are picked up from the cells and transported for elimination from the body. This system also equalizes body temperature. Like I said before, when we were talking about muscles, and how we have smooth muscles in our veins, that helps when they constrict and stretch. That helps control body temperature because it controls how much blood is running through our veins at the time. Next, we have the lymphatic system, and it's also sometimes considered part of the immune system. It consists of a network of lymph vessels and ducts that collect excess fluid, called lymph, from extracellular spaces in tissues and transports the fluid into the bloodstream. The lymphatic system also includes many small collections of tissues called lymph nodes and an organ called the spleen, both of which remove pathogens and cellular debris from the lymph or blood. In addition, the thymus gland produces some types of white blood cells, lymphocytes, that fight infections. Next, we have the digestive system, which consists of several main organs, including the mouth, esophagus, stomach, and small and large intestines that form a long tube called the gastrointestinal GI tract. Food moves through this tract where it is digested, its nutrients are absorbed, and its waste products are excreted. The digestive system also includes accessory organs such as the pancreas and the liver that produce enzymes and other substances needed for digestion, but through which food does not actually pass. Next, we have the urinary system, which includes the pair of kidneys which filter excess water and waste products called urea from the blood and form urine. 2 tubes called ureters carry the urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder, which stores the urine until it is excreted from the body through another tube named the urethra. The kidneys produce an enzyme called renin and many hormones. These substances help regulate blood pressure, the production of red blood cells, and balance calcium and phosphorus in the body. Now for the reproductive system. I decided not to make this a paragraph because it's just so much information because it differs between females and males. So instead I made a Venn diagram. Both the female and males reproductive systems consist of gametes, which are basically the sex cells. In females, those are called eggs, and in males, it's called sperm. The hormone that females use, it's the main hormone that we're going to talk about, is estrogen, and in males, it's testosterone. In females, we have different organs such as the uterus, ovaries, and mammaries. In males, we have the epididymis, testes, and other organs. Females the reproductive system of females supports embryos and fetuses until birth and also produces milk for the infant after birth. In males, it is used for delivering gametes to the female reproductive tract. So, now that we're done with all of the 11 body systems, which body system interests you the most and why? So you guys can type it in the chat again. And you guys have about 2 minutes for this. And plus it's break time because we're in halfway. Okay, so my favorite body system is the cardiovascular system. I have firsthand experience with this system, and I've always been interested in the heart. It's just such a cool system. My laptop's gonna die. Hold on. Okay. But now Mahima's gonna talk, and she's going to explain to you her favorite system. And I'm going to charge my laptop.
Hi, my name is Mahima Aggarwal. I am a junior in high school, and I'll talk more about myself later. But my favorite system is the nervous system. And personally, I find the nervous system so fascinating because it doesn't just say, it also includes psychology, which is something that really interests me. And the brain is so complex, and there's always something new that you can learn about it. So I personally really like I enjoy learning about the nervous system.
Okay, sorry about that. So, something interesting about the heart is that it's actually a flat muscle, but it's just wrapped up in such a way that it has different chambers and stuff like that. So, the thing you see right here beating is actually one flat muscle. And to me, that's super cool. And some of you guys were saying the digestive system, the nervous system, all of them are pretty cool. Um, I think a few you guys might not be familiar with are the endocrine systems and the lymphatic system. To me, the lymphatic system is mysterious, but we'll go over that and you guys will love it. Okay, and I think break time is over, so let's continue. Okay. So next we're going to go over vital organs. We kind of already talked about them, but let's just go over them and see really why are they that vital. So the most vital of them all is, of course, the brain. It is the body's control center. It receives and sends signals to other organs through hormones. It is responsible for our thoughts, feelings, memory storage, all of that good stuff. The next is the heart. It is responsible for pumping blood throughout our body, because without blood, none of our cells would work, and then our body would stop working eventually. The body can work for a couple minutes even after the heart stops. In case you guys didn't know that. Kidneys. Kidneys are very, very important, and it is true that you can live with only one kidney. So, what kidneys do is that they remove waste and extra fluid from the blood. The kidneys take urea out of the blood and combine it with water and other substances to make urine. Next, we have the liver. It detoxifies harmful chemicals, breakdowns drugs, filters blood, and secretes bile and produces blood clotting proteins. And then next we have the lungs. Everyone knows what the lungs do. They remove oxygen from the air that we breathe and transfer it through our blood where it can be sent to the cells. The lungs also remove carbon dioxide, which we exhale. So those are our vital organs. There's 5 of them, and they are super, super important to our bodies. Next, we have the body cavities. Now, this stuff can get kind of complicated, but pay attention and you guys will get it. So, we have 2 main sections of our bodies, the dorsal cavity and the ventral cavity. The dorsal cavity is basically towards the back of our body, and the ventral cavity is towards the front. For the dorsal cavity, we have 2 main sections, the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. And for the ventral cavity, we have another 2 main sections, but one of those sections is divided into another 2 sections. So for the ventral cavity, we have the thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity. In the abdominal pelvic cavity, we have 2 other cavities called the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. Easy way to remember it, abdominal pelvic has both of the words that it sections out into, the abdomen and the pelvis. Okay. So, the dorsal cavity. It is located at the posterior back of the body and is a fluid-filled space which surrounds the brain and the spinal cord of vertebrates. The cranial cavity fills most of the upper part of the skull and contains the brain. The spinal cavity is a very long, narrow cavity inside the vertebral column. It runs the length of the trunk and contains the spinal cord. Both of these very, very important. And in the spinal cord, if anything happens to it, it can result in paralysis of the body. The ventral cavity. It is at the front of the trunk. The trunk would mean like the area below your head and above your legs. The organs contained within this body cavity include the lungs, heart, stomach, intestines, and the reproductive organs. The ventral cavity allows for considerable changes in the size and shape of the organs within it. When we eat, our intestines don't just stay in one kind of like size. It moves. Our stomach moves. Our heart, when it beats, it moves. So the ventral cavity allows for it to move as much as it possibly can. In the dorsal cavity, right here, if anything moved in here majorly, it would result in something very bad. If your brain moved a lot, it would result in a concussion, and if something happened to your spine, it would result in paralysis. But everything in the ventral cavity needs to move. So, in the ventral cavity, we have thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity. The thoracic cavity fills the chest and is subdivided into two pleural cavities and the pericardial cavity. The pleural cavities hold the lungs, and the pericardial cavity holds the heart. In the abdominal pelvic cavity, this is basically the lower half of the trunk, and it is subdivided into the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity, it's like stomach area. This holds digestive organs and the kidneys, and the pelvic cavity holds reproductive organs and the organs of excretion. Next, we have body regions and quadrants. This will get a little bit tough, and it is a lot of memorization, but don't worry, no one really has to memorize this stuff. This is just for you to know where things are. So for body regions and quadrants, this is how we divide our, basically our trunk. So in the regions, we have 9 regions, and in the quadrants, we have 4 quadrants. Now let's go over them. In our right upper quadrant, let me see if I can use a pointer. You can read, I don't know if you guys can see this. I bet you guys can. So this basically says right upper quadrant. And in the right upper quadrant, we have the liver, the gallbladder, part of the small intestines, part of the colon, the upper part of the stomach, and some structure of the pancreas. In the upper left quadrant, we have the left part of the liver, the larger part of the stomach, the pancreas, the left kidney, spleen, portions of the transverse and descending colon, and parts of the small intestine. In the right lower quadrant, we have the cecum, appendix, and part of the small intestines, the right female reproductive organs, and the right ureter. In the left lower quadrant, we have the intestines, the left female reproductive organs, and the left ureter. So if I were to ask you, where is the stomach? Where does most of it lie? Which quadrant? Type it in the chat. Yes, it is the left upper quadrant. And even though some of Okay, so I just looked at the chat. Yeah, keep them coming. So, okay, so why we have them into 4 quadrants is because basically we need to organize the body. When, for example, if someone has a gunshot, when the EMT brings them in, they tell them which quadrant it is, so that the surgeons would know where the gunshot is.
I'd like to add a little to that. So someone asked me a question that kind of relates to this. So the reason why we divide the body into quadrants is to basically organize the body, like she said. But for example, when we're giving directions to someone, we use north, south, east, and west, and that will allow the person to have a better understanding of where they are direction-wise. So when we are referring to the body, since the body is so vast and complicated, we divide our body into quadrants, which allows us to specify which part of the body we're talking about. So when someone talks about the left upper quadrant, we can automatically just zoom in onto that part of the body, and we can talk more into that context instead of just talking about the whole body in general.
That was a better explanation than I would ever have given. But yes, that's how it works. So for my example, if you had a gunshot and let's say the left upper quadrant, the doctor who would have to take care of the patient would know that it's hitting the stomach or the pancreas, the left kidney or the spleen. And some of those things are very essential to the body. And messing something up in the body might result in something worse. It could result in sepsis or something like that. So when you have that in mind, it's easier to know how that part of the body is going to react. So that's why it's so important to remember. And for example, if you're having pains, like let's say, you're having a pain somewhere in your abdomen, you can tell where it is and what is probably hurting. So if I'm having it in my left upper quadrant area, then I would probably know it's my stomach hurting. But if it was happening in my right lower quadrant, it could be my appendix that's hurting, and that could result in something like appendicitis, which is not a good thing. And you would have to go to the hospital for that. So it's helpful to know where everything is. So that's what we have for the quadrants. Now for the body regions. So we have 9 body regions. And take a look at the names. I don't know if you can read all of them clearly, but the right and left parts have the same exact name. Like in the upper row, in the first row, they're all hypochondriac except the middle. And there's a left hypochondriac region and a left hypochondriac region. And for the lumbar region, it's the same thing. And for the iliac region, it's the same thing. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm talking about, but it makes it easier to memorize the names and learn about them. For me, I hadn't realized that sooner, so it was tougher for me to understand. But I feel like if I made that clear enough, then it would be easier. So in basically the first box, the right hypochondriac region contains the portion of the liver, the gallbladder, the right kidney, and parts of the small intestines. In the left hypochondriac region, skipping the epigastric region, so I can just tell you guys what happens in the hypochondriac regions, we have part of the spleen, the left kidney, part of the stomach, the pancreas, and parts of the colon. Can you guys just type in the chat if you know what I'm talking about? What areas I'm talking about? So someone asked about the lungs and the heart. So the regions that I'm talking about are basically the regions of the abdomen. The thoracic cavity has its own regions. It's basically just knowing where everything is because there are a lot bigger organs over there. But in the abdominal region, there's a lot of small things that are just smushed together. So those are the regions that we talk about in health science. Okay, so did we go over the left hypochondriac region? I'll just go over it again. So in the left hypochondriac region, we have the part of the spleen, the left kidney, part of the stomach, the pancreas, and parts of the colon. Now, if we go into the second row, the first box is called the right lumbar region. Over there, we have the gallbladder, the left kidney, part of the liver, and the ascending colon. Now, if we skip the umbilical region and go to the left lumbar region, we have the descending colon, the left kidney, and part of the spleen. If we go down another row and we look at the first box, we have the right iliac region, which contains the appendix and the cecum. And in the left iliac region, we have the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, and in females, we have the reproductive organs. Now, for the middle column, the epigastric region, basically above your stomach, well, your stomach region, has majority of the stomach, part of the liver, part of the pancreas, part of the duodenum, part of the spleen, and the adrenal glands. In the umbilical region is kind of like the center of everything. It's where your belly button is. So basically, you can just kind of sense where everything is, as long as you know that the middle contains the belly button. So in the umbilical region, we have part of the stomach, the head of the pancreas, the duodenum, a section of the transverse colon, the lower aspects of the left and right kidney. And lastly, we have the hypogastric region. So below the stomach, hypogastric, below the stomach region, we have the bladder, part of the sigmoid colon, the anus, and the reproductive organs. Okay, so now we're going to go over the directional terms. Does anyone have any questions about this before we move on? Because I know this is tough to learn. Okay, seems like everyone's good. So we're going to move on now. So these regions don't really have jobs. These regions tell you basically what is in them. So in the hypogastric region, below the belly button, it tells you that the bladder is here, part of the sigmoid colon is here, and the reproductive organs are here. So rather than doing a job, it's more like directions, like telling you where things are. Okay, I think we got that covered.
And please go slowly.
Okay, so someone had a question about how these are named. Most of us have not been in medical terminology. These names are basically a mixture of prefixes, suffixes, and roots, which tell us, it's like a dictionary kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but unless you know those terms, it's kind of hard to explain to someone. So we're gonna go over that in a couple of slides, but for right now, I'll explain, for example, the right hypochondriac region. So you would have to know what the prefix is. So the prefix is hypo, and the root is chondriac. I'm not sure what chondriac means because there are thousands and thousands of roots that we have for different parts of the body. But that's how it works. We're gonna go over that though. You just have to memorize them. But I can tell you, like, hypogastric, like hypo means below, and gastric is like pertaining to the stomach, the intestines. So we're gonna go over that, so don't worry about it. For right now, just know there's some chaos in the madness. There's a lot of things in the body, but they're all organized so that we know where everything is. So just kind of have a summary of. Now we're going to talk about directional terms. So we probably should have gone over this before, but now that you guys kind of know what's in the body, I'm going to go over this. So like we talked about before, ventral and dorsal cavities, they pertain to the ventral part of the body, which is the front of the body, and the dorsal part of the body, which is the back of the body. So another name for the front of the body is anterior or ventral, and names for the back of the body are posterior and dorsal. Next, we have cephalic or superior. So let me know in the chat what you think what comes in your mind when someone says superior. Because I don't think anyone really knows what cephalic means. So what about superior? What do you guys think? Okay. Yeah, so when someone is superior to you, like someone like a boss would be a superior to an employee, means they are above them in some type of order. So cephalic or superior would mean toward the head, towards your head, or toward the upper part of a structure. So if I have my arm here, what would be superior? What would be the superior part of my arm? Would it be my elbow or would it be my shoulder? Which is more superior? It would be the shoulder that is more superior because it is above the elbow. Next, we have inferior or caudal, which means away from the head or toward the lower part of the structure. So it's basically the opposite. You're basically going lower. So if I were to say, let's say my leg, which is more caudal? Is it my hip or is it my foot? Knee or my foot? Which one do you think is more inferior? It would be the foot. So next we have lateral, which means away from the midline of the body. So midline would be like the middle of the body. So my neck would be in the midline of the body. My face would be in the midline of the body. My mouth would be in the midline of the body. So when we're talking about lateral, we're talking about how far is it away from the middle of our body. So which one would be more lateral to the midline? Would it be our eyes or would it be our ears? Okay, I realize that some of you guys are in middle school and haven't had the chance to mature yet, but there are some people who really want to learn. So drawing on the Zoom meeting or spamming the chat will not help anyone. It will not help you. If you are not here to learn, then try your best because I really want to help you guys out. And I really want everyone to not be distracted and to get as much of this as they can, because we will have a quiz and everyone will see how you will do. So now I was talking about lateral. Did everyone answer? So we were comparing the eyes and ears. So if this is the middle of my body, the middle of my face, which is more lateral? Which is more away from the midline of my face? Is it my eyes or is it my ears? It would be ears. Yeah. So when we're talking about medial or proximal, it basically means closer to the midline. So if we take the same example, eyes or ears, which one would be more medial or proximal to our midline? Our eyes, yeah. And next we have the median and midline, the actual area where the mid-sagittal plane divides our body into equal left and right halves. So again, basically this entire area. Okay. So next we have the body planes. So there are three main types of planes that basically divide our body. It helps us kind of directionalize where things are. So the first one we're going to talk about is the transverse plane or the axial plane, which divides the body into up and down parts, superior and inferior parts. So it divides your body in half. So if we were to say, okay, next is the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane divides the body into right and left parts. So it's basically where your midline is. That's why we, in our example, in the median and midline definition, we have it's the area where the mid-sagittal plane divides the body into equal left and right halves. So the sagittal plane doesn't have to be in the middle of the body. It could be right here in our shoulder, but it would still divide our body into right and left parts. And next we have the frontal and coronal plane, which divides the body into a back and front part, posterior and anterior. So if we were to say where our spine was, where would we say it would be? Would it be in the anterior part of our body or the posterior part of our body? Let me go back to our definitions. Would it be the anterior or posterior? It would be in the posterior part of the back of our body. Okay, sounds good. It looks like you guys got that down. See, this is so important because when we're talking about where things are, it's kind of hard to just memorize where they are. But if you know that they're in the back or the front, like in medical terms, not like back or front, it's more like posterior and anterior, it helps you out a lot. Next, we have anatomical positions. So this is the main anatomical position of the body. And what the anatomical position is the description of any region or part of the body in a specific stance. In the anatomical position, the body is upright, directly facing the observer, feet flat, and directed forward. The upper limbs are at the body sides, and the palms are facing forward. So this image right here is basically how the anatomical position looks like. Most of our diagrams in medicine are in the anatomical position. It's just so when you keep the directions in mind, it's like a template. We have a lot of positions in medicine, but these are the 5 that I learned and I wanted to pass on to you guys. So we have the Fowler's position, the Sims position, the knee to chest position, prone position, and supine position. So I don't know if you guys can properly see these images, but the Fowler's position is a semi-sitting position and the head of the bed is elevated. The Sims position is lying on the side with the hip and knee straight and the other hip and knee bent or flexed. The knee to chest position is lying face down with knees bent while resting on the knees and chest. Lying flat, and the prone position is lying flat with the face down. And the supine position is lying flat with the face up. So I think it's interesting because some of these positions are actually like the positions that we sleep in. So just for the sake of getting everyone to be talking, what position do you guys regularly sleep in? What position is most comfortable to you? Just type it out in the chat. Okay, we've got a lot of Sims. I don't think anyone sleeps with Fowler's position because that just looks uncomfortable. Supine position, does anyone really sleep with supine position? Prone position is comfortable. I like Sims position, personally. Okay, now, this is the interesting stuff. I loved medical terminology. So we're gonna discuss how to read medical terms. Pay attention to this because this is very, very important stuff. Anything you learn in medicine will be based on medical terminology. If you have a basic understanding of what things sound like and how they go together, it really will help you understand what those terms mean, because medicine is really just a lot of fancy words that mean simple things. Most of them, some of them. Okay, so order is super important when you're reading medical terms. You always start from the end and look for the suffix. When you start reading medical terms and you take the medical terminology class, you will kind of have an eye for it. You'll understand what a suffix is, what you're looking for. Even in English, we have suffixes, we have prefixes, we have roots. So you might already have an eye for this stuff, but just look out for it because that's where we start from. We don't read left to right in medicine, we read right to left. So we start from the end and then we go back to the beginning and we look at the prefix. So once we understand what the suffix is, we go and look at the beginning, at the prefix, understand what that is, and then we look at the middle, the root of the word. So for example, we have, it took me a very long time to find an example that had every single part of a word, the prefix, the root, the combining vowel, and the suffix. So this word is osteoarthropathy, and it means the disease of the bone and joint. So osteo is the prefix, arthro is the root, the O part of the root is the combining vowel, and pathy is the suffix. So does anyone want to guess what maybe each of these parts mean? Like, what does the prefix mean? Okay, bone. Yes. Excuse me. Yes, that sounds good. Osteo does mean bone. So if we're saying that this is the disease of the bones and joints, what do you guys think arthro means? Yes, it means the joints. And then pathy, I think we all have an introduction to what pathy means. It means disease. So when we look at this word, we go to the suffix, we go to the end. So the disease, pathy, the disease, then we go to the prefix of the bones and joint, arthro. So that's how we read these terms. And it's very important that you do that. Otherwise, you're going to read bone, joint, O, and then disease, and that won't make sense. Someone raised their hand. Vaishnavi, do you have a question? I can't see the chat from my screen share, so we have Mahima looking at the chat. Could you just type in the chat what your question is?
If any of you guys do have questions about what she's going over, just make sure to drop it in the chat. So that makes it easier for us to answer the questions. Okay, thank you.
If not, Vaishnavi, I can definitely answer your question after if you feel more comfortable. Oh, okay. But just in case anyone else has a question, you can always private chat me afterwards and I'll answer it. So let's talk about each of the parts. So we said there were 4 parts. We had the prefix, the root, the combining vowel, and the suffix. So what are each of those parts? So the prefix is optional. When you have a medical term, it is not necessary for you to have a prefix. A prefix is a descriptor. It can be like color, position, temperature, size, shape, speed. Like maybe a certain organ is huge, so you would use a prefix to describe it. Or if it's like maybe has a different color than it usually doesn't have, so you could use a prefix color. So you don't have to have it, but it's there. The root is something that you do need. It is the noun. It is the actual organ, the body part, the bone, etc., whatever you need. For example, like when you're talking about the heart, you could have the root of cardio. And something to remember about this is that you can always have multiple roots. And that is kind of why when you look at some medical terms, they get so big and scary. It's only because they have multiple roots. They're talking about multiple things. Like you could be talking about multiple organs, anything really. And next we have combining vowels. They are optional, but they do have rules. They basically make the pronunciation correct because in English, nothing is ever really straight. O or E are the most common combining vowels. So it is important to know when to use and when not to use combining vowels. You use them when you have 2 or more roots, before a suffix that begins with a consonant. A consonant would be, for example, C. So if the suffix begins with something that is not a vowel, that's when you use a combining vowel. It could be combining vowels could be really anything. I think, like I said, O and E are the most common. And when you shouldn't use a combining vowel is after a prefix or before a suffix that begins with a vowel, because you can't have 2 vowels just right next to each other connecting the words. I don't know if that makes sense, but for example, if you have a medical term that has a suffix that begins with an O and you put a combining vowel with it before the O, which could be an O or an E, when you really say it, like when you say the whole thing out, it will not make sense. So that's why they say you can only use it before a consonant and not before a vowel. Suffixes are a need. You need a suffix. It basically gives extra details. and it describes. For example, disease, medical procedures, fractures, the study of something, condition of something, etc. An example would be infraorbital. So this is one of the first examples that I learned in medical terminology. So I want you guys to guess. I know that you might not know what infra means or orbital means, but if you do, if you want to guess, go ahead.
Does it mean like kind of like guessing something, or like?
So when you see this word, what comes to mind?
It has the word infer or something pretty similar to it.
Okay, so just whatever you think, just type it out in the chat and we can see if you guys are correct. We'll go over some more examples of this, but for right now, just do your best guess. Okay, I'm not going to keep it from you guys any longer. Infraorbital means pertaining to under the eye socket. So here's how it's divided up. So first we look at the suffix, which is al, orbital, ul, pertaining to. That's what ul means. Next we look at the prefix, infra. Infra is another word for under. So after that, we look at the root, which is orbit. And orbit in medicine means eye socket. So in all, this word means pertaining to under the eye socket. So yeah, taking medical terminology is not mandatory, but if you want to go into medicine, it is super, super helpful when you start learning about this stuff. So yeah, that's what infraorbital means. Pertaining to under the eye socket. So now, like I said, there are thousands, hundreds, I don't know, billions of medical terms and suffixes and prefixes and everything. So basically, when you learn medicine, you just have to you get a sense for some things. So these are some that I found were common. So common prefixes and suffixes, just take a look. You don't have to memorize these. Don't write them down. It's not going to help you. But just understand that this is how medical terms work. So right here, we had pathy, number 7, in the first box. Pathy, disease or disease process. So that's how you basically understand all of these terms. And then we had gastro in the second box, number 5. One of our regions and quadrants had the word gastro in them. So it was hypogastric. Hypo means below, and gastro means related to the stomach. So that would be below the stomach. So basically, you start getting a flow, like you start understanding how these work. So now we are finally done learning every single topic that I have had for you guys here today. So does anyone have any questions? Now I will look at all your questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can look at the chat.
I would just like to add that after our questions, we will be having our quizzes after class. So I would recommend everyone stay so you can test your knowledge and continue to reinforce what you've learned, because that's a big part of learning, is making sure that you actually retain your information. So after the questions, in like 2 or 3 minutes, we will be starting our quiz. Thank you.
Okay, so someone asked where I learned this. Basically, in Fort Bend ISD, I go to a school named Kempner High School, and what we have are, so I think it's called career technical education courses. So the first class I learned in freshman year is what's called Principles of Health Science. It was more like healthcare, like what is OSHA or stuff like that. What is PPE, personal protective equipment? And the second class I had on my sophomore year was medical terminology. And that's where I learned how to read medical terms. And the third course I took last year was anatomy and physiology. That's more like where everything is, how it works, what it looks like. That's what anatomy means. And physiology means how it works, like its function. Yes. If anyone wants to see a slide again, let me know. In the meantime, we're going to have the quiz, but I just want to answer what the question I was talking about before. So, and the fourth class that I'm taking this year is health science theory. I don't know what I'm going to learn in there yet, but I hope it's something cool. Because I loved anatomy and physiology. I love medical terminology. And if you take these classes in high school, you will love them too, I promise. And I will put the recordings for this session on our website, so you guys can go over that. And personally, just email us at helpingyourhopes.gmail.com. Yeah, we can do that. Oh, so Shifa, did your school already offer these courses? Yeah, I would definitely try to make room in your schedule if you can, because if you want to go into medicine or healthcare, these courses are such a blessing in Texas. Yeah, so anyone who went to DeBakey is also very, very blessed, because that school is literally for medicine. They're probably smarter than I am. But yeah, so we will have the recordings on our website, so you guys can go over them as much as you want, make as many notes as you want, because all of this will help you for sure when you enter high school. Oh, Nevia says that they offer them in her middle school, and I think that's so cool, because I didn't know that. I got my introduction to medicine in high school. That's pretty cool. Nevia, where are you from? In Houston?
Yeah, I'm in Houston, and so my school is based out of Baylor, Baylor College of Medicine. So my school is actually a branch of that, Baylor College of Medicine at J.C. Ryan. So
Dang.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so you're going to be... Are you in high school? Oh, wait, no, you're in middle school. So you're probably going to
no,
get your...
I'm in
You're probably going to get your doctorate by the time you graduate high school, because whatever you just said sounds pretty cool. And Tanvi, I am going to college in the year of 2021. I'm a rising senior, so I'm going to be starting senior year this year in August. Does anyone else have any questions? If you have questions later on, please email us. We will answer them. Go on our website, contact us, do it from anywhere. We will answer your question. Also, we have a WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group, and I think you guys should join that, because we will have basically a support group for all of you who are just starting out fresh. And it'll be really great. Helping Hopes, the organization that I'm part of, we also do a lot of volunteering. So just being involved in this kind of stuff will really boost your college application and stuff like that. The quiz is going to take you like 2 seconds. So I would do that pretty quick. I'm going to send you guys the link in the chat and the code and everything. So just hang on. In the meantime, my co-host, Mahima Aggarwal, is going to introduce herself as well.
Sorry, at the beginning of the class, I couldn't quite introduce myself, but hi everyone. My name is Mahima Aggarwal, and I am an incoming junior at Kempner High School in Fort Bend ISD, and I've been taking CTE health science courses offered at our school for the last 2 years. I love medicine. I'm very enthusiastic about it, and I'm super excited about this course, as well as getting the opportunity to meet and talk to you online via Zoom. I'd also love connecting with you all more in general. So if you have any questions about high school, college admissions, I'd love to engage in a conversation with you. So for this session, I was more behind the scenes. I was answering your questions. So maybe in the future, I'll be more engaged in class. But if you have any recommendations or any feedback on the session, you can contact us at our email, which is helpingyourhopes.gmail.com, or you can visit our website. Shortly the quiz is going to begin, so we'll be sending out the link on the chat. And for the people who weren't able to view the whole session or want to go back to the material that was taught, we will be posting our recorded session on our website, as well as we will be sending out an email with the video link, so you can view this session again, write some notes, and basically brush up on whatever we taught in class. If you do have any more questions about the material taught, you can contact us directly. And also we encourage you to join our WhatsApp group chat, in which you can get a lot more information about the course, and that will be sent also via email. So thank you, and we're sending the quiz link right now.
Yes, you guys are allowed to ask any question you want on the WhatsApp chat, and I sent the Quizzies direct link, but I'll also send the code if you guys just want to join from the actual website. No problem, Shifa. If I had this course when I was in middle school or high school, I would have learned so much, because it's so much to learn in such little time. I mean, you'll have another 8 years after high school to learn this stuff, but knowing it now gives you an edge up, definitely, over everyone else in the field. So yes, ask as many questions you want anywhere, email, website, WhatsApp group. Has everyone gotten the Quizzies? Okay, cool.
So the link to the Quizzies is in our chat right now. So if you want to go join right now, we're about to start the quiz. Please don't sweat over it. It's just information that we learned. If you have taken notes, we encourage you to use that. But if you haven't, it's just, it's better. You can learn how much you've actually gained from this class. And yeah, so please join that right now, and we'll be waiting.
Okay, we're gonna start the Quizzies. Has everyone joined? Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna start.
I just want to mention again that even though the quiz has started, you can join even later, and you can continue to practice this quiz on your own time if you want to review the information that was given in the session. Right now, it's kind of neck to neck. We have a lot of competitors, and we will want to congratulate the person who has won the quiz. So we'll see you after the quiz is finished. Currently, we have QWERTY is our first, and Ananya is our second. As soon as everyone has wrapped up the quiz, we're going to see who the winner is. We want to congratulate Ananya for first place out of, how many players were there?
I think there were like 36.
I think there was around like 50, 56 players. So congratulations, Ananya. You've done a great job. And everyone else that participated, we're so happy that you could join us. And Anjali will provide more information about the next class.
Okay, guys, so session number 2 is going to be same time, same place. Find us on Zoom. Also, Ananya, good job. Are you in middle school or high school? Ananya? Oh, no. She's going to 10th grade. Dang, you're a smarty girl. Everyone here is a smarty, and by the end of this course, you will all be like doctors. Okay, thank you guys for joining, and I'm so proud of you guys for joining because this is awesome, and I'm really glad that you guys are dedicated. and peace. Okay, please come to the next session. I want to see everyone there. I will find you if you don't come. And again, the recordings will be on our website. Bye. You're welcome, Vaishnavi.
No, I don't want to leave yet. I want to be on the